you asked me maybe 10 years ago whether digital will be what it is today, I may not have probably, maybe I would have said yes, but not to this scale.
Ghanaians have always loved stories. Stories have educated and entertained us for generations. Today, we see this flair for storytelling in our marketing and advertising industry. Brands, businesses, and social interventions have tapped into this love and given us memorable adverts that have shaped perceptions and become part of popular culture.
Hey, honey, coochie, what's up?
Wash with soap.
This is a story of the steady transition of media, content, and talent into more digital and digitally enabled spaces.
I remember that in that era, it was one TV station, one radio station, and all the space around you. So it was billboards, posters, and all that. That is what created the ad and the impact.
In those days, billboards were done by hand. So they would draw and paint, and then they would mount them and all that. And so I remember that when I was as young as 5 or 6, I was very much interested in advertising. I didn't know what it was at the time. It was just fascinating to see how stories told by individuals sold brands to people.
Today, we see a massive shift in the way brands, businesses, and social causes communicate and engage with their audience. The landscape of advertising is undergoing a radical overhaul, driven by the advancements in modern technology and infrastructure, which are reshaping and taking over traditional channels of communication.
Advertising in itself in Ghana has developed almost as linear as our access and exposure to technology.
I think that after 2010, all the agencies were tinkering, with the thought of, do we need to invest in digital resources in Ghana?
With the growth of digital, we got a fourth line of revenue. So beyond regular advertising, beyond promotions and events, digital was adding on.
I believe back then, businesses were conversant with doing business with traditional media. And so it took us a very long time to start getting it.
In Ghana and most African countries, this was completely different. It was through mobile devices that people were accessing mostly the digital space for the first time. It was never really a question of saying, why do we need digital? It was more, okay, what is the best solution for us and how do we go about it?
So my journey with advertising began with a dinner I had with a gentleman called Emmanuel Nina. Emmanuel Nina ended up being the chairman of Now Available Africa. He had a vision, and a result of that dinner was that a merger was made between the big Now in Italy and Creative Eye, and the company called Now Available was then formed.
You know that Now Available Africa was born with digital in our DNA, and we were champions and advocates for digital in the region.
For all intents and purposes, I will say the first truly set up agency which had a full digital advertising setup from day one was Now Available Africa.
In trying to catch up with the rest of the world, including digital became a big part of the advertising conversation.
Back then, the brand managers always had the budget. And my job was to ask them to give me a small bit to do something for them. It was always a battle.
The need for brands, agencies, and businesses to join in opened up for a lot of learning.
I mean, at that point, we didn't properly understand the full capabilities of digital. And at that point, if you looked at agencies like Now Available, the other few agencies, a lot of their teams weren't even Ghanaians. So you realize that they had brought outside expertise. So these people were ahead of the curve and we were now learning. So it was more agency-led at that point.
People don't quite understand why they should put so much budget into it. Okay, even though, like I always tell them, digital is the most measurable platform that you can have. So why would you put all your money into billboards and TV that you can't really measure?
The internet was a tool, right? It was a tool that we used to help in our research, in downloading images, things like that.
Then brands are now discovering how to use digital because everybody was on social media, so they felt like we had to be there, but they didn't know how they were going to be there.
Being digital is more than just posting stuff on Facebook.
The demand for the skill set and need to fill the gap led to the birth of many digitally led advertising firms such as Echo House, Now Available Africa, Interactive Digital, and Carrot, among others.
The key thing that has attributed to the growth of digital marketing in my eyes would be when we now started having agencies that were specifically in the space of digital marketing.
We didn't call it digital marketing. It was just hype for us. And so we would make so much noise on Facebook and, as the other platforms came, we would sort of open up into those platforms.
But the major work really that created change or a new approach was to set up that kind of work, the procedures with clients who were also doing this for the first time. So how do you establish a task force for content creation? Who does the community management? And then how is it done? What do we monitor? How do we really work together as a team, right? So that was the major effort. We basically really brought many brands online during those early days.
In the past 10 years, brands have increasingly utilized digital platforms to captivate, educate, and shape cultural trends through impactful campaigns.
I would say the telecom companies did a good job with that, especially Casapat, and then there was Vodafone, obviously, and then there was Tigo. Yeah, so the telecom companies were doing a good job with ads. Yeah.
So some of the early adopters who were willing to take a chance and wanted to do something disruptive were Tigo, and we did some really great things there in terms of transforming the brand's perception of the brand and then the brand conversation.
Tigo's drop that yam.
Drop that yam. Tigo.
It was an expression that at the time became so popular that it was really on everybody's mouth. It was a nice example also for us at Now Available of collaboration, because we were involved in this campaign together with Incel and together with Tigo, the client, and we brought in that digital aspect.
Even though it was an extension of a traditional campaign, I think the digital application of it was really done well, and to the point that it became very organic, and people were even using it without thinking about the campaign. They were just talking about Drop That Yam, and I think that's a very good example of how a campaign should be.
When we launched it, we launched it with a campaign called Let's Not Pretend. And at that time, it became like a whole, movement, if I should say, and everybody was using that to do so many different things.
If you want me to talk about ones that I remember from Africa, Nescafe, startup or whatever, I think, that was the one. To see a truck drive across Africa, just interviewing people and doing all sorts. It's fascinating. That was why my friends Now Available who are doing an amazing job. Yeah.
The brands that we launched and took to market first were Nestle brands, so Nescafe and Nido, and they were willing to do big things, especially on Nescafe.
It was disruptive. I think it was the first in a kind in the region. And it was the first time actually that we were able, we have seen actually on the ground a brand mixing below the line, which means, everything related to concerts, below the line activities with digital.
So we use that as a use case in terms of demonstrating what would be possible if a brand wanted to integrate digital.
We have been seeing a lot of comments online. People were upset about how club refers to the consumer as Charlie, right? The thinking was correct, because in Ghana, everyone is Charlie. But how the brand was spelling it irked people, because I think Charlie was spelled with it was Charlie, more or less. And then our locals, as people who are Charlie, which was more or less like a Ghana word, right? It's like, we don't want it. And so that conversation started on social media. So by listening and picking up hints, we proposed to the brand, and then the brand agreed to do a digital campaign where we would use it to influence that change. Was that impactful? I would say so. I mean, I think we had over 25,000 people voting. We managed to change it from the wrong Charlie to the right Charlie. The audience felt involved with the decision, and the transition was easy because they already wanted it gone.
A key one for me was the Social Ghana Twitter campaign, because I loved for me, digital really has to embrace experiential, and they really have to work together. And that was a great example of taking something from digital, putting it into reality, and then it sort of amplifying digitally again. And it was just a brilliant sort of execution of both.
So Obasma was quite recent, 2017. I think at that time we had all begun to understand, or not begun, we had understood what digital meant. We understood that digital wasn't just a channel, but it was also a platform for deeper engagement, different conversations, and driving a different kind of conversion from people who are aware of our brand to actually making them believers or purchasers of the brand. I think it was very impactful. I mean, when you think about Obasma, what we're trying to do was a behavioral change. So we're asking people to focus more on what they eat and ensure that what they eat is more nutritional. I thought digital played a critical role because we're able to see who is reacting to what we are putting out there, and we're able to ask ourselves, how do we engage these people further?
We wanted an agency who was well-versed in digital media marketing. And therefore, yes, we wanted to see that. And I remember right at the beginning talking to Kofi about that and him showing some of the case studies they've done for other clients who I think some of which or most of which they still retain, some of the digital work they've done. And I think that was quite a big factor in choosing Available, because they had capability in that.
And so the dividends of the seeds that we sowed over the years clearly is paid off. And the Sky Girls campaign became one of our multi-year, multi-award winning campaigns for so many years. And we are grateful for that. Yeah.
The growth of digital made room for influencer and experiential marketing to elevate brand experience at various stages in the consumer journey.
When I look back now, maybe many years after when we did something like House of Walker, and you realize that it's kind of similar in that sense, that even though Diageo, for example, was creating like experience store, we did a lot of influencer work, we did a lot of amplification on our digital channels.
We were tasked with amplifying our content and creating additional refreshing content that helped to celebrate Johnny Walker at 200. By doing this, we hope to erase the old perception of the brand and make it more appealing to a young and trendy set of drinkers.
I think digital was really key in House of Walker, both in the build-up and in the actual activation of it.
And that kind of synergy, for example, when I recall back at Nescafe got started and I look at Johnny Walker, I kind of see how far ahead we were at the time, but also how now it's become almost like a norm, that this is how digital campaigns are done, which is not just to say that you start something online, but that you link it to all the legs of various touch points, for example, that you can reach the consumer.
You can't have digital, in my mind, without experiential.
Well, so I think the major difference between influencer marketing when it started then and now is the magnitude and on which we do things or we see things being done now. There's a lot more influencer marketing campaigns happening. There are a lot more influencers in the space now, and people are finding their niche and strength in different spaces, and so people are able to use different people for different things.
For me, digital advertising has to come up with ways that are a lot more human focused, and I think that's why influencer marketing is so important. But it's also, how do you develop influencer marketing that also isn't taking advantage or predatory in some ways.
I just think people need to now start thinking of more organic ways in which to actually do digital. And even influencers too are now overdoing it, and they're not posting in a very organic way.
The expansion of digital within Ghana's advertising and media landscape appears indefinite. The next turn of events will be worth waiting for.
It's going to grow. The challenge is we have to do the right things. Like, how do I put it? We have to self-regulate, so we make sure that we're doing the right things.
I mean, the space keeps evolving so rapidly. Something is in, something is out. Right now, AI is taking the lead.
Give ourselves 10 years, when the dynamics have turned around, currently everybody has a phone, but now we get to a place where everybody has a smartphone. Everybody lives their lives in digital platforms. I feel that digital will be the way, it will be the best way to engage brands. It will be the way to let your brand sell.
It's going to get more sophisticated and at the same time simpler, because the people are the people. They tell you what they want. It's really about how much you listen and, communicate with them in the way that they will understand. And so I think it's like exciting times ahead.
Now it's digital first, and it takes up every other thing.
Now that you see growth in technology, you see growth in internet penetration, everyone seems to be on some sort of social media platform. It becomes very, very easy and clear that is where brands want to interact a lot more with their consumers, and that's where most of them are putting their budget now.
So AI is going to do a lot in making our digital marketing super accurate.
I guess as our audience also gets more savvy, the creativity will also have to get better. It would have to improve. Somebody saw something 2 minutes ago, I need to show them something fresh now. I need new pieces of content every single day. So I think that it's going to push, creativity some more.
I think nobody knows really, because I don't think anybody can say they clearly see 10 years from now where it will be. But what I can say for sure is that with things like AI and so on, the targeting and how we reach consumers will change significantly. And it will be more individualistic than demographic based or psychographic based. And it will be interesting, of course. And agencies obviously have to adapt to it, because obviously the competition is not only within agencies, but outside agencies.
Well, I think in the next few years, digital advertising will take over the market. Budgets will be high in favor of digital. Agencies will become more digital than traditional. And very soon we may see that investment into traditional media will go down in favor of digital media. It will also help us to tell better stories, because our stories will not only be consumed by people around us, but by the entire world. And so then our stories would be shaped by the kind of audiences that we are engaging with. It will also give more exposure to brands, because your messaging will go much further than just be limited to a location or a territory.